Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine Herron,
And I'm Sabrina Hannon.
and we are trying a new thing called Just Jossing. We are going to be kind of delving into the world of Joss Whedon and all of his creative outlets, starting with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, and then moving through Buffy and Angel, and then even into Firefly and Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, Cabin in the Woods, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like everything as it kind of extends out, and kind of talking about the influence that Joss Whedon has had on media and then on culture as the years have gone on since the early 90s.
And also on our friendship. I'm pretty sure the reason we're friends is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That too.
Okay. So we're going to start off talking about Buffy the Movie, which came out in the 90s.
Yep.
Like early 90s.
93, I believe, I can look it up right now so that we can,
be accurate.
Yeah,
and Joss did the screenplay, it's not a screenplay when it's, right? Is it a screenplay when it's, yeah.
Yep, it's a screenplay. It came out in 1992, and it came out as a comedy horror. It was actually number 4 on the box office when it came out, which is decent.
It's surprising when you look at the movie today.
Mm-hmm. But there were actually a lot of like major players in the movie.
Hilary Swank, I think is my favorite.
That was her debut.
Yeah, and I think she arguably has probably the most successful career out of people who were like brand new in that, not the older actors, but.
Oh, would you say that?
I love Hilary Swank, so yes, I would.
Do you know who number 10 on the basketball team was?
Oh, yeah. Ben Affleck's on there.
Yep.
I still love Hilary Swank more. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that, like, at least Hilary Swank has a character in the movie and not just like you're watching and I was like, is that Ben Affleck? He says nothing. Like he just
he said take it. And he like passes the ball to the vampire basketball player.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Him and his full head of hair.
Mm-hmm. When I saw it, I actually thought it was the actor who plays Finn in Glee.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, no, I'm confusing something here, that it's definitely the wrong timeline. And I looked it up and I was like, it was Ben Affleck.
Yep. So there's a great hope. I think it's funny that the woman who plays Buffy, like, nowadays, she's not as prominent now as some of the other people in that film.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they aptly named it though with a comedy horror because there's a lot of comedy, especially the one vampire dying.
So that was Paul Rubin from Pee Wee Herman's or Pee Wee's Playhouse fame. And he actually wasn't supposed to have that part. The part that was actually cast for a female vampire. And then the actress who was supposed to portray Emmeline backed out last minute. And so they rewrote it for Paul Rubin. And that definitely kind of swayed things, I think, more towards like the comedy and campy aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Joss Whedon has always had a bit of a tendency towards a little bit of camp. Mm-hmm. But he's always been able to kind of tread that line where it's good camp, like it's making fun of itself well. Yeah. And unfortunately, with the movie, and I was doing a little bit of research because I hadn't actually seen the movie since the 90s, and so I went back to watch it a few times. when this, like when we're saying we're going to do this, and I was like, all right, well, I need to brush back up on my Buffy. And so like I went back and I was looking at it. Apparently, Joss Whedon was so upset with the way things were going that he walked off the set. Like he was like, okay, I've done my part. I wrote the script. Like, there you go. And this is no longer my project.
He's talked quite a bit about how the movie really got away from what he wanted the Buffy world to be like. And that's one of the reasons why he wanted to do the show. And there's a ton of differences between them, even with the Buffy in the movie is not a feminist icon at all. Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the show, however, yes. And not only is she, but there's a host of characters who are.
I thought it was interesting just kind of seeing how much the world changed and developed from, Buffy the movie to Buffy the show. Yeah. Which came out, was it 97, I believe?
Yeah.
97 or 98 for the show?
Well, she graduates in 99, so it would have to have been 97 because it starts her sophomore year.
Yep, 97. So
unlike, that's another thing in the movie, it's their senior year, and obviously to give them more time with the show, it's sophomore year.
Yeah. Although, I did notice the change in that. I was also surprised at like the level of alcohol and drug use in the movie that did not really, like move over into the show. And
until Beer Bad, really.
Yes. which had its own, kind of like moralizing. But I mean, in the movie, Pike, Oliver Pike is the, eventual love interest. He's the friend turned love, or antagonizing. Yeah, antagonizing annoyance turned friend turned love interest. And I mean, from the very start, there's underage drinking. The girls go to a bar and the guys show up and they're already drunk and slurring. But they're supposed to be high schoolers.
Yep. Yeah, it's, I don't know, because I think around that time a lot of stuff was coming out showing teenagers drinking and doing drugs in high school. So I think it jumped on that bandwagon. But I do like the choice in Buffy the show not having the drug and alcohol use, because it's not necessarily part of the high school experience for many folks, and it makes it more relatable. Also, if you're a Slayer, it's a health hazard.
Yes, you've got to be on top of your game. So some of the things I was looking at was the major villains. And then, so we've got the movie, and then we have kind of the first 2 episodes of the series, which is Welcome to the Hellmouth and The Harvest. And they are the ones that I feel are supposed to be comparable in setting up the world. And so you start with the vampires in the movie who have, very visible all the time fangs. And
pointy
they've got
ears.
They've got the pointy notched ears and the very obviously pale skin. And when you switch into the series, besides from the Master, the vampires for the most part look human. Now, the main villain in the movie is Lothos. And Lothos is the only one that does not have notched ears or overly exaggerated teeth. He still has vampire teeth, but they're not overly exaggerated until he kind of like hisses or bares his teeth. Then you can see them. But for the most part, Lothos appears normal and human, and they flip-flopped that in the series.
Yeah, which I think makes more sense. It makes sense that since vampires are descendants from demons, they're going to start out looking more demonic. And as time goes on, as their blood's intermingling with humans, they're going to look more human. I also enjoy that Lothos, is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Lothos
is in True Blood as Sookie's fairy great grandfather or whatever. Like, that was a nice little tie-in. I think as soon as I was watching Buffy the movie, the vampires in that are much more comparable to the vampires in True Blood. You know, their bodies, how except True Blood, the fangs pop down. So but they're very pale. They fly.
Yep.
That's probably the most bizarre part of it. Like, at least in True Blood, you have to be a little bit older to be able to fly. The one guy is a day old and he's flying around talking about how he's hungry.
Yep. And apparently still drunk.
Yeah. I wonder if you're turned as a vampire, like if you're drunk when you're bitten, if you just stay drunk then throughout your after second life, whatever.
Yeah, the brain damage that has occurred like in your drunkenness is now forever immortalized.
Ugh.
So yeah, but I just thought that was interesting. Some of the things that they changed, and some of it I'm sure was for like strategic, or I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for here is, but
I mean, it makes more sense, like in a world that doesn't accept that vampires are alive, you can't just leave their bodies laying around, and Buffy doesn't have time to like dig holes for them all.
Haul them away.
So having them burst into dust or get set aflame if they go into the sun makes a lot more sense. I mean, and even in other things, they don't just lie there.
Yep. So, I mean, I thought that part at least, and that's kind of like more costuming, and then also kind of more mythos setup. I thought that was interesting how they flip-flop some of those things. And they do address in the first episode, I think it's Xander who says they can fly, and Buffy's like, no, they can drive.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shout back to something that people had kind of mocked from the movie. There was actually one scene where you could see the wires. So, and then I was thinking about some of the archetypes that they brought over from the movie into the series. And so we have Lothos, and he's the master. And in The Harvest, or in Welcome to the Hellmouth, you have Look, who is the, preferred head vampire under, like the lieutenant. And so you have Luke in the series, who is basically praying and speaking to the master. And that's like Amelin in the beginning, talking to Lothos and saying, Lothos, like when you wake, we brought the world ready for you.
Alrighty.
So I think we're talking about, the archetypes transferring over. And so you've got, Lothos and the master, and Look and Amelin. But then I was looking at Hilary Swank's character.
Cordelia?
And I thought Cordelia, but then I flipped and I felt she was more like Harmony. Because in that situation, Buffy was the queen bee. Buffy was the Cordelia. And Hilary Swank was the person who wanted to be the queen bee, who was kind of biting at her heels.
Oh, yeah.
And, there was definitely like a power dynamic, a power struggle there, where, Buffy would be like, oh, yes, I think this jacket is so lush, I think she said. And Hilary Swank puts her down and says, no, it's not. And then immediately goes and takes the jacket for herself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was more of a Harmony move.
I think Harmony was too afraid of Cordelia for the most part. But yeah, I think otherwise it's a more fair comparison.
And then when Buffy steps out of that loop, Hilary Swank becomes the Cordelia.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jennifer steps into the role of Harmony.
Yeah.
And so it was like this very clear hierarchy or totem pole. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to use the word totem pole, but it was like there was a pecking order.
Yeah. And I also think, so one of the things that kept the same was, so in Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest, their friend Jesse gets taken and is turned into a vampire. Same thing with, it's not Buffy's friend, it's a possible friend, but Luke Perry's character, his friend who is, what is his name in real life?
David Arquette?
Yeah, David Arquette, his character. I think basically they kind of keep that the same almost and transition him over to Jesse.
And it's interesting because Benny has his little monologue to Pike about how, he was such a loser as Benny and how he's so much better as a vampire. And Jesse has almost the exact same monologue to Xander about how much of a loser Jesse was, and now he's a vampire and he's so cool.
Oh, baby Xander.
Yep. And I wonder, I would have to go back and look into what Joss Whedon's, stated thought process was. Was Xander ever supposed to be a love interest? I don't think so, because they introduced Angel right away.
Yeah. And Angel is very clearly a love interest of everyone.
Yeah, so David Boreanaz shows up in the very first episode, and you're like, well, that's the one she's going to end up with. But I sometimes could see bits of Pike in Xander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I like how they change the Watcher from having just one guy who dies and then is reborn again to like train slayers, which doesn't logically make sense, because that means like as he's a baby, there's a slayer somewhere who's screwed. So I like the idea more of there being the council. Also, Giles is way less creepy and weird. He's librarian weird.
Yep. So Donald Sutherland was Merrick, and it has been stated many times that Joss Whedon is very particular about phrasing, about lines, where he will tell someone, you have to say this line exactly this way because it has this shout out later. I'm setting something up for later. Mm-hmm. And apparently Donald Sutherland just refused to listen and would rewrite his own lines and changed the emotions and gravitas of many different scenes. Mm. Also, what was the thing that he kept doing with his handkerchief?
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
It was very like President Snow from Hunger Games. Mm-hmm. At one point, he's chewing on it. Like he's got it in his mouth and he's tugging on it.
Maybe he has like some problem where he drools a lot or something, and so he just has it written into all of his roles.
Yep.
But yeah, that was.
I like him as an actor, but apparently he was very difficult for Joss Whedon to work with, and then when we see past Slayers in the series, they are their own individual woman. Yeah. And you can have memories from past Slayers or, like kind of built in with the prophetic dreams. But in the movie, they literally just took Christy Swanson and Donald Sutherland and they like put them in different...
Put wigs on them and like sent them on their way.
Yep.
Yeah, that was another thing that bothered me about the movie, because it's the same problem with him. Like if it's the same Slayer being that means will be generous 15 years where like vampires are running around unchecked,
Yep.
just like killing willy-nilly.
Yep.
I So both the movie and the show open up with Buffy having these dreams. Now, the movie, it's looking into the past, whereas with the show, they're prophecies of what's to come.
Mhm.
I don't think we really see one of like what's happened in the past until we get to the first Slayer, who is like reaching through time for
Mm.
Buffy. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that's the first time we see.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we see previous Slayers,
Mhm.
like, or previous Slayer memories. They have the journals of previous Slayers that they talk about, or
Yeah,
rather not the journals of the Slayers, the journals of the
Watchers.
Watchers,
Hmm.
about the Slayers. Um, but yeah, there's more towards the future and guidance, this kind of supernatural link, not past lives coming back. Although they do touch upon that in a far future world in Angel.
Yeah.
Um, in the final season of Angel, they do touch upon um, an active or an activated Slayer having memories of previous Slayers, including the ones that were killed by who were later introduced to William the Bloody or Spike.
Hmm. Is
Um,
that I know there's one where a Slayer is mentally ill.
yes.
Is that one?
Yep.
Okay.
So the actual like woman, the potential turn active Slayer, witnessed her family being murdered, I think, or she was kidnapped and abused. And then when she like activates, she has all the floods of memories of the previous Slayers, um, and then the Slayer strength. And
Hmm.
she remembers Spike and from him killing, I think her name was Nikki. Um,
Well, I killed two.
well, yeah, so there was the Slayer in the Boxer Rebellion,
Hmm.
and then I think her name was Nikki, was the Slayer that he stole the jacket from.
Yeah. Who is Principal Woods? Is that
Yes,
Principal Woods' mother?
yeah,
Yeah.
or was his name Nikki? And
There's a Nikki somewhere
there was a Nikki somewhere.
other than Xander's real name.
Nikki Woods.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then her son was Robin.
Oh yes.
Robin Wood, like Robin Hood.
Very strong forest theme there.
Yeah.
Very strong forest theme. Um, One of the things I'm glad that they got rid of and they make it quite clear in the first episode between the movie and the show, is that in the movie, Buffy gets like period-esque cramps whenever a vampire is near.
Uh huh.
And Giles was like, you should be able to sense them, or you should just know, like try and hone in on it.
Uh
And of
huh.
course, then she's like, look at that guy's fashion sense.
Yeah. Whereas in the movie, it's, oh, I have cramps.
Hmm.
my,
And it's
my
just like,
supernatural PMS.
yeah. I, mm, when that
I,
happens. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was also say there are several instances in the movie where, so for example, Buffy exits the basketball game and a guy says to her, Cat calls her and says, hey baby, you want to get some willpower between your legs? And she says yes, and she steals his motorcycle. And he immediately yells after her, Dyke, you're
Hmm.
a dyke. I'm telling the world.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling the world. And, there's this idea that you have to be either a lesbian or, or, you know, a man in order to have any power or agency. And they kept kind of like pushing Buffy down.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. It's not COVID, I swear. But yeah, they kept pushing Buffy down into this like not really female warrior or active protagonist with agency, the way that she was supposed to be developing. She kind of ends up being, what do you call the feminine archetype or the female archetype in horror films, who like makes it all the way through to the end, but she's not really like the warrior. She just kind of
A
somehow
Jane?
survives. Hmm?
Aren't they Janes? I could be wrong.
I don't know. We'll have to look that up for a future episode.
Yeah. Yeah, no, she's not a feminist character at all.
Yep. Although there, again, another scene that really me, where her boyfriend Jeffrey.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
So for the first time we meet him, she's like crawling over his friend. I think his name is Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Andy's like body to kiss Jeffrey, and Andy's like, "Ugh, I want to borrow her," or I think he says, "I want to borrow it," and her Jeffrey's like, "Nah, you'll get it dirty."
Yeah.
And then later, Andy's like, "Gotta get some," and slaps and grabs, like he smacks her butt and he grabs. There is a grab, and she flips him, and the response is not, "What the fuck, dude? Why were you doing that? Why were you assaulting a person?" It was, he said, "Don't touch my thing." That's it. And Buffy says, "I can take care of myself."
Mm-hmm.
And then he's offended and wounded that, he wasn't needed. And immediately he and his girlfriend are totally fine. What's her problem for not being okay being molested? And did I miss that? Was that something that was okay in the 90s?
I'm going to assume yes, honestly. Like, given the state of how things are, and like if you look at television from the 90s and stuff like that, yeah, I'm going to go with a yes on that one.
Well, I am very glad to see a lot of that turned around in the series.
Yes.
One of the later episodes, but it is still season 1. I think maybe it was season 2. Larry, Jock Larry, football player, basketball player, whatever, Larry, also tries to grope Buffy. Buffy flips him.
I think that's season 2. Yeah, because it's in the self-defense class. Yeah. Yeah, with Willow being like, "You're supposed to be weak like us."
Yes, you're supposed to be weak. Guys don't like it when you're too strong.
Is that the episode where he comes out, or is it the following season? And he thinks Xander is gay too?
I believe that is the same episode that he comes out.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that episode, it's all about misogyny, actually. It's the werewolf episode.
Yeah.
And it's about how, like, being in heat, like, sexual hormones make vampires crazy. And so that's why there were werewolves. There are werewolves on, like, Lover's Lane, because, like, all of those sexy hormones. And then there's, like, super misogynistic, "Ooh, you're a little girl," werewolf hunter, going after what we then find out is Oz. But Xander tries to, like, say, "Oh yeah, it's totally Larry," and that's when Larry's like, "I'm gay."
Yeah, and they echo back to that in season 3 at some point too. Which I've always loved about Joss's work is he Easter eggs throughout, and like something that you might not think, I mean, that obviously was a big plot line in that episode, but something that might seem small in season 2, come season 4 or 5, you're like, "Oh, I see what you did there."
Yep. It's not just, I mean, he does have a couple of, like, Monster of the Week episodes, but he always is building the bigger world. there are characters that just continue to grow and develop, even when they're in their external orbits. The world remains like there's character development going on in the background.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my favorite callbacks that he's ever done was, I think it's called Lover's Walk in season 3, when Spike comes back to town after Drusilla has left him, and he was like, she was cheating on me with, I forget what the demon's called. They're all slime and antlers. What?
Chaos demon.
Yeah.
All
They're all
antlers and slime.
And then in season 5, they're doing like back through Spike's life after he realizes he's in love with Buffy, and it goes to that scene where he finds Drusilla with the slime and antlers guy, and he's just there with slime dripping off of him.
Yep.
And I was just like, yes, exactly what I had pictured. I always enjoy those little callbacks.
So did you have any other notes or interesting points you would like to point out as we talk about these movie and first 2 episodes?
Yeah, Darla's character in the show. Out of the first 2 episodes, like I feel like all of the actors from like the pilot and the second one, like their story arcs make sense. Who they are in those episodes makes sense with who they are later.
Mm-hmm.
Darla, not so much. She's definitely like, I don't think that they thought that they'd be bringing her back at any point, and she played a very like young, childish, like matching the schoolgirl outfit vampire. And when we see her in flashbacks and when she's brought back, that's not who she is at all. Like that vampire, I'm like, how the hell did she get sucked into a cult and then turn into this wishy-washy girl?
Well, yeah, so I don't think she was really sucked into a cult so much as the master is her sire. And there is a certain level of loyalty that vampires have towards their sires.
Mm-hmm.
And so she is with him as a faithful follower up until Angel comes along, or Angelus.
Yeah.
And she brings Angel or Angelus to the master, and Angelus has no respect for the master. And the master is like, you're not gonna leave me, are you? To Darla. And Darla's like, but he's sexy. I'm gonna run off with that. And I think the master calls him the stallion. You're gonna leave with the young stallion. And she does, she runs off, but she still has that like return to the fold, where she comes back to her father, basically, or her father figure.
The master is definitely running a cult, though.
Yes.
Like, definitely. Yes. It just so happens that her father is the cult leader.
Yes. She was raised in the cult. And, and so the master, I mean, he'd been around forever, and eventually he's like, damn these humans, I want to open up the gates of hell and bring back the old ones. And then he failed because of an earthquake, I think is what happened. Like he got stuck like a stopper.
Yep.
So like he failed and he was stuck, but he wasn't stuck all that time. There was plenty of, generations when he was running around all over, with his followers, killing swaths of humans.
Yeah. What was I remember also seeing like, so the master does have a human face, but he stays in his vampire face and then encourages his followers to stay in their vampire faces as well, because they are above humans.
Really? I did not. Where did you read that? Is that one of the backstory?
It's either one of the backstory. It might have been also, I don't know if it's in a backstory thing or if I read it in one of the comics.
Phone call.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, the guy, Lothos.
Mm-hmm.
He is his stupid vampire cape that he's holding up, which is more magician, I think, than vampire.
Yep.
Like they make up for the fact that he doesn't have the stupid ears and the fangs that make all the actors drool. Like you can see them
Uh-huh.
spitting on each other by giving him the crazy vampire cape.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. I think the
Oh,
only
so I just want to talk about some random cameos that I missed the first time watching the movie.
Mhm.
The DJ is Slash.
Oh, really?
Yes. And
Hmm.
also, Seth Green was in the movie.
Where?
He was a vampire at the prom. There's a scene where Pike flings Seth Green as a vampire onto a table. And I looked and I was like, is that Seth Green? Is that Oz? And I went back and I looked, and sure enough, he was there. He had more scenes, and they cut all of those scenes except for that one.
Interesting. Well, I mean, Joss is known for reusing some of the same actors like
Yep.
throughout there in his career. So that makes me happy that Buffy the movie is tied in
Yes.
with an actor.
But yeah, I was looking through and I was like, oh, that's a cameo, and oh, that's a cameo. I noticed that, and I think we kind of touched base on this when we were watching the movie. Joyce Summers in the movie.
Oh yeah.
What was her? It was Candy. I'm gonna have to look it up.
So do you think Buffy's mom was actually like that mom in LA? Or do you think, and then like changed going through the divorce and everything, or
No,
retconned the mom?
I don't think so. I think they totally changed it. So it was Candy Clark, and apparently they thought she was going to be this like major player because she was in 1973 American Graffiti, and
Mm-hmm.
she received an Academy Award nomination for it for best. I think it was Best Supporting Actress. And so, you know, people were like saying, oh, she's going to be so great, she's going to be a big name. And so she got like special credits, like
Mm-hmm.
hers was the first name, and it's like with Candy Clark, above Donald Sutherland, above Luke Perry and Christy Swanson and Paul Rubin and Rutger Hauer.
Ben
There's
Affleck.
Ben Affleck. Slash
Yeah.
didn't even get it. It's with Candy Clark. And today we're like, who is Candy Clark? And it was because at that time, people thought that she was going to be this major player. And then I guess she just never really hit it out again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've never seen American Graffiti, so I really have no idea who she is.
So she was in, let's see, The Big Sleep, National Lampoon's Movie Madness, Q, Blue Thunder, Amityville 3D, The Blob. She was in The Blob. Cherry Falls, Zodiac. Yeah, it looks like she was in a couple of TV shows as well, but she was in Magnum PI
Oh.
for a full, or twice, but it wasn't a full year. It was just twice that she showed up. So I'm surprised because I really thought, she would have been like, there would have been a reason behind her having such a special
Mm-hmm.
credit.
And
Maybe she needed one.
maybe, yeah, because they don't really do that now, at least, where just because they think someone's going to be big, it's either you're big right now
Yep.
or this is an alphabetical, or not alphabetical order, but in order of appearance,
Yep.
which I think order of appearance is the most typical.
Yeah. Oh, well, sometimes they do alphabetical order
Yeah.
by cast, or by not like actor's name, but by role.
Yeah.
So,
Only, it's not like extra one. Those people are still all the way at the bottom.
yes. Yeah. But anyways, I'm really excited to talk more about, um, how Joss Whedon's world like expands and develops.
Yes.
I think the next episode, or the next episode between you and me that we're going to talk about, is going to be more of season one's. Do you want to
Monsters of
talk
the week.
about monster? Yeah, the monsters of the week, which kind of sets up the world of the living on a Hellmouth.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, because then, I mean, there's the angel ones, but I feel like those should be like together.
yep.
That's that's its own story arc.
Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sabrina, for just jossing with me.
Ah, it is a pleasure.
All right.
And till the next episode.